I'll call on the meeting to order of the Newberg Urban Area Management Commission, Tuesday, November 23rd, 2021, 7 p.m. And we need a roll call.
I'll get that, Doug.
Go ahead, Bobby.
Okay, Rick Rogers on here?
He's excused, and in his place is Denise Bacon as the alternate.
Okay, Denise. Mary Starrett?
Present.
Jeffrey Musall is excused. Alan
And-
Halstead?
Before we move off of that one, Bobby, and so Chris Wright is his alternate. And Chris, are you here?
I'm here.
Chris? Okay,
Okay,
Present.
and Alan Halstead?
Speaking.
Kit Johnston?
Here.
Merrill Kunkel?
Present.
And staff, we have Doug Rux and Stephanie Armstrong.
I don't see Stephanie.
Stephanie, okay. And I think that's everybody.
Stephanie.
Say that again, Mary.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I don't know that we'll see Stephanie. I know she was going to be leaving the county planning department. So I'm not sure when her last date was, but I'm pretty sure it was just recently. Unless she's still around.
Last I heard, she was still there, but I cannot officially confirm that. So what you have tonight is at least you have Newberg staff here. So we will help you through tonight's agenda. So Mr. Chair, turn it back over to you for the minutes.
So next up, approval of minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review everything from last meeting?
I would move
Yes.
approval, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Okay, it's been motion for approval and seconded for the minutes from October 26, 2021.
Bobby, did you get the motion in the second?
I did.
Okay.
Next up, we got communications from the floor.
Mr. Chair, we need a vote on the minutes first.
Vote on the minutes. And we just want to do a verbal aye, or we want to go around and call name.
Just a verbal would be sufficient.
Everybody in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
I'm gonna abstain because I wouldn't know if the minutes were right or not, because I wasn't here.
Okay.
Sounds like the ayes carry.
Yes, they do. So next up is the communications from the floor. This is from the audience. So if any of our attendees wish to make a comment at this point in time, now would be the time to do that. So Bobby, can you check? There's someone, not Ken Katzeroff, but there's a Ken. Can you check to see if that is Ken Friday that we need to promote?
You want me to promote Ken Katzgeroff?
No, first let's check with, there's just a name that says Ken. So I'm not sure if that's Ken Friday, who is the planning director for the county.
He has his hand raised.
Yes.
We'll promote and find out. Sort of like a surprise. I feel like I'm in a seance. Ken, are you there?
There you go.
Okay, there he is.
There's my counterpart from the county.
And Stephanie should still, I was planning on being here, so I'm surprised she's not here. And I let her know I was going to sit in too, but I didn't come prepared for anything because I thought Stephanie was going to be here, but I'll answer any questions I can.
Okay. Thanks, Ken. Appreciate it. So Sue, I believe Ken Katzeroff has his hand up and would like to be promoted.
Correct. He he put both names, so that's easy. You should see him now. Here we go, little magic.
For the record, Ken Katzroff, I'm an attorney at Schwab, Williamson and Wyatt. And I just had one quick comment, which is related to the agreement that you will be considering later. We don't have any problems with it, except for one small issue potentially, which is as it's drafted right now, any hearing on a amendment that is considered by this body and then is followed for additional hearing before city council and potentially county commissioners is on the record. And we just have some concerns that city councilors or county commissioners may have some additional questions and ask for additional evidence on any proposal. And right now, given that it's limited to an on the record hearing before NUMAC, that there might be some procedural issues or questions down the line. And so I just throw that out there for consideration by this body as well as both city and county commission. If you've been in some of these hearings before, it's hard to keep things on the record with lots of people raising issues. So I just leave that for what it's worth. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
So Sue, we can move Ken back to the attendee side.
Sure.
So, Mr. Chair, the next up on your agenda is report on final disposition of agenda items. And I can say we have none.
Okay.
So that was the easiest one of the night.
Okay. So moving on to number 6, orientation.
Yeah. So we've had 2 meetings where we've talked about the member at large position with NUMAC. And at our last meeting, I had asked NUMAC members to let me know who they would like to have considered for the NUMAC member at large position. So we have 4 individuals who have been brought forward. So they're in your memo that's in your packet for this evening. And so those are Jack Lyda, Phillip Higgins, David Wall, and Vicky Shepherd. So at this juncture, Mr. Chair, what you have is the opportunity to promote each one of the individuals, have them provide some comments about their desires or wishes to be a member at large on the NUMAC Commission. So we can go through all 4 of those. Looking at the list, all 4 are present this evening. Then we can move them back into the attendee side, and then there'll be the opportunity for NUMAC to discuss and then to have hopefully someone make a motion on a nomination and a second and then a vote. Also to remember is that your decision is not final, is that the City Council of Newberg and the Board of Commissioners have to ratify NUMAC's appointment for the member at large position. And so Ken and I would have to work through that process with our respective organizations. That sound like a reasonable approach to commission members?
Yep.
Okay. Why don't we start off with Vicky Shepherd as the first? So Sue, if you could promote her.
Good evening. Am I on now? I'm really new to Zoom, so You may have to help me through this.
We can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay, good. Hi. I'm concerned about the growth of the city and its impact on the surrounding areas. And I am concerned about the existing farmland and that be preserved. I actually was one of the office managers for Oregon Hazelnut Orchards. And so, and I worked with Mrs. Bryson down on Wilsonville Road at Star Mooring Farm. So I'm concerned on my aspect that all farmland be protected, but I also know that the city needs to grow. I also have been involved with the development of the Crestview Crossing and the impact that it had on the wetlands. And that is something that I also like to preserve, is the wetlands. Does anyone have questions for me?
Yes, Commissioner Wright,
A question.
go ahead.
Chris, did you have a question for Vicky?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Good. Considering this is a 3-year term, how does this position fit into your other responsibilities? And you have no alternative available. If you are unaware of laws, how would you go about becoming familiar with laws concerning this board?
How would it, I am retired. I'm currently retired. In the summertime, I'm really busy. I actually, believe it or not, drive a rear engine dragster in the summertime, and I start racing in April, and I finish racing in probably September, October. It's a family sport for us. So I think this would fit in okay with my racing schedule. Like I said, I'm retired. As I forgot what your other question was.
Concerning the laws associated with this board, if you're unfamiliar with them, how would you go about becoming fluent in them or understanding the laws associated with land use board?
Okay, well, I got the copy of the minutes and the changes that the board wants to make currently, and I read through all 63 pages. So I am somewhat familiar with the URA, and I am already somewhat familiar with the UGB. I'm also familiar with Friends of Yamhill County, and I think that you should all probably be aware of that also.
All right.
Any other questions for Vicky?
Yes, what do you believe in your most important contribution would be to this board?
The board. Well, I think I know the city. I've lived in the area for 14 years. I don't know the city outline areas as well as I could. I was somewhat disappointed that the map that was shown didn't have any of the street names on it, so that I couldn't really tell further where the borders of the city were. I think I could have probably gone into the city website and found more information, and that probably would have helped me too.
Okay, that's part of the process. Thank you, Vicky, very much. No further questions.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for Vicky?
I have a question. Hi, Vicky. This is Mary Starrett, Yamhill County Commissioner. Just a question about your location, because I know this is an at-large position, and according to, so there are certain specifications about an at-large member, and just wanted to know a little bit about where you are.
I'm on Benjamin Road, and I'm actually right behind the Crestview Crossing development. I'm in front of Bruce Thomas's property that is probably going to be developed next. That is, they will actually be my neighbors. The Doc Kimball.
So we're looking at, Okay, no, I'm just looking in terms of the specifications regarding the within the city of Newberg urban growth boundary or the city's area of influence. So you would be in that within
No,
that 1
I'm-
mile outside.
I am outside. I'm not in the city's urban reserve area or urban growth area. But I am
Okay,
right on
perfect.
Benjamin
Okay.
Road.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Vicky?
She could probably throw a rock off her back porch and hit, the rock would hit inside the city limits. That's how close she is.
I'm 40 feet from it. My front
Yeah.
door is 40 feet from it.
That's a good arm throw.
Yeah.
That's right.
Any other questions for Vicky? I don't see any other questions for Vicky. Doug, do you have the next one that you want to populate?
So Sue, can we move Vicky back to the attendees list and let's promote Jack Lyda?
Jack, you there?
Hello, this is Jack. Can you hear me?
Yes. Welcome, Jack.
Thank you.
Can you give us a little background and any reasons that why you'd be wanting a member at large position?
Sure. I grew up in Newberg. I've lived here approximately 40 years and spent 20 years as an officer in the Air Force. I am retired. My understanding is I live just outside the urban growth boundary, that it comes up to the back of my property. My wife and I have a small farm. We're out on Honey Lane. And I'm concerned that I feel like people who live outside the city limits don't have really a seat at the table or a voice in the process. And I too am concerned about protecting farmland and would love to be a representative for those who live outside the city limits, but call Newberg their home. I have a Newberg address. So any questions for me?
Just for the record, I grew up in Newberg. My kids played soccer with Lydas. I knew a John Lyda, probably better. I'm assuming you're in that same family group, so I just want to make it clear I know who you are. That's all.
Yeah, great. My dad was John Lyda. I'm the oldest son.
Any questions for Jack?
Yes, this is Chris Wright, Planning Commissioner for the City of Newberg.
Yes.
Jack, considering you have no alternate available if you're appointed to this position, how does this position fit into your other responsibilities over a 3-year term?
As I mentioned, I am retired. I do have a sheep farm, but I definitely have time to work and am interested in contributing time and being a part of the process.
Okay, additional question. If you were unaware of some of the laws associated with this board, how would you learn about them?
Well, I would take whatever steps are necessary to get access to those laws, to the documents. I'm no stranger to having to understand the rules and processes. As my time as an officer in the military, there are so many rules and processes you have to follow, regulations, everything has to be by the book. So I'm a good rule follower and understanding what is expected and required, and that's just what I do.
Wonderful. And if you're appointed, what do you believe is your most important contribution would be to this board?
Yeah, I think being a voice for people who are outside the urban growth boundary, outside the city limits, just so they can be heard. And I want to know what they're thinking as well as, what we're thinking, and just want to do the smart thing for what's good for the city and what's good for people outside the city limits.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate your talk. No further questions.
Any other questions for Jack?
I have a question.
Sure.
Okay. Do you have any previous experience on city or county commissions or committees?
No, I don't. This would be the first.
That's all.
Any other questions for Jack?
Can I add to that answer?
You bet.
Okay, I've been involved in other ways in other organizations. For example, I was on the board for the National North American Shetland Sheep Breeders Association. I think it was for 9 years, and 1 year I was the president of that organization. So it qualifies for some experience, I think, that would be helpful.
Okay, if we don't have any other questions for Jack, we'll move on to the next.
So Sue, if we can move Jack back to the attendees and promote Phillip Higgins, please.
Greetings, all.
There you go.
Pleasure to see so many familiar faces.
Welcome, Phillip.
Thanks, Kit.
You want to give us a little background and maybe why you want the member at large position?
Yeah, super quick thumbnail. Grew up locally, Yamhill. My wife is third generation Newberg. We've raised our kids here. I went to George Fox, have a degree in literature and philosophy. I am currently a small business owner here in town. My wife and I own and operate a commercial real estate brokerage. I am currently the vice president-elect for the Salem Valley Chamber of Commerce. I'm a member of the Newberg Economic Development Strategy Committee, member of the, or I guess a recently elected member to the Newberg Ad Hoc Urban Renewal Committee, as well as having served on the Newberg Ad Hoc Economic Analysis Opportunity Committee, which was specifically about identifying the lack of industrial and commercial lands within the city of Newberg and its urban growth reserves. Also like to proudly say I'm one of the founding members of the Yamhill Downtown Association, which is my hometown and the economic development agency for that particular city. So I was asked if this committee would be something that would be of interest to me. It certainly is. The city itself and the urban growth boundary are things that are near and dear to my heart, both from the standpoint of sensible growth and preservation of our farmland. I think I do have a lot to offer, and especially the ability to, kind of bring some informed experience to the table for the work that the committee does.
Thank you. Is there any questions for Phillip?
Planning Commissioner Wright for the city of Newberg. I have a question. Which one is more important, building new homes and commercial space or rehabbing, expanding, and better utilization of existing homes and storefronts?
I think those two things actually should exist in tandem.
Additional question, with no alternative available, how does this position fit into your responsibilities for a 3-year term?
Those of you who have had the pleasure of working with me in the past know that I have terrible work-life boundaries. So I'm very much available at all times.
Wonderful. All right. And then my last question is, if you are unaware of particular laws concerning this board, how would you go about learning about them?
I have an insatiable curiosity for things that are legal and policy driven sort of within this space. So I certainly am adept at researching those things and self-motivated to do them, including but not limiting to pestering you or Doug for answers as such as needed. Ken Friday also knows I'm not afraid to ask a question now and then as well.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. No further questions.
Anybody else have a question for Phillip?
Mr. Chair, Mary Starrett, Yamhill County Commissioner. Mr. Higgins, just again, I'm trying to sort of get an idea of everybody's location. Can you give us an idea whether it's within the city limits, the urban growth boundary, or the 1 mile area around the urban growth boundary?
Actually, within the city limits.
You live in the city of Newberg.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question or just a clarification if possible. Phillip, you sped through your CV there really quickly. Could you please repeat what any previous experience on city or county commissions or committees, please? I know I caught some of them, but I think I missed a few.
So more or less relevant to this specific board, the Newberg Economic Development Strategy Committee, I think probably has some overlapping agendas. I was recently promoted to the Newberg Urban Renewal Committee, which is looking at the urban renewal area as the chamber representative, since I'm the vice president elect of the chamber and things real estate are kind of my bailiwick. I was also on the Newberg Ad Hoc Economic Opportunities Analysis Committee, which I believe, and I'm going to probably look at Doug, I think we wrapped last year, maybe about this time or January. But again, it was looking at, we worked with the outside consultant. I think there was a committee of like 8 of us, and we were looking at specifically industrial and commercial land deficiencies within, Newberg's 20-year plan. So I wasn't part of the housing side of it. That was a separate committee. This was specific to industrial and commercial lands. And then of course the Yamhill Downtown Association. Can't forget that.
Any other questions? I see none. Do we want to move on to the next one, Doug?
Sure.
Thank you, Phillip.
If we can move Phillip to attendees and promote David Wall, please.
Can you hear us, David?
How about now?
There you go. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you.
You want to give us a little background and maybe why you want the member at large position?
Well, I've lived within the same geographical location as Ms. Shepherd. She's been a little bit of a closer stone's throw, but needless to say, I'm right there. I want to be on this commission because reviewing the past history of this commission, I mean, 10 years ago or so, this commission, the city of Newberg, excuse me, had some pretty touchy issues with trying to annex certain portions of property within my neighborhood into the city limits. I'm a staunch proponent of protecting farmland. And I wanted to keep a pulse upon the direction of this committee. I certainly am interested to seeing how a realtor could be classified as not having a conflict of interest, but that's neither here nor there. I'm quite familiar with what's pending from the legislation as far as several House and Senate bills that pertain very germane to how the growth is going to occur throughout cities of this particular population. And do you have anything else you want to ask me?
Anybody have any questions for David?
Yes, David, this is Chris Reich, Planning Commissioner for the city of Newberg. With no alternate available, how does this position fit in your other responsibilities over a 3-year term?
Outside of getting up and going to bed, I'm retired. I've been retired since 2002, so I have plenty of time.
Okay, I also have a second question. If you are unaware of the laws concerning this board, how would you go about familiarizing yourself or orientating yourself to them?
I'm quite familiar and adept with Oregon revised statutes. I'm also quite adept at the variety of state, Senate, House, Joint Committee committees, as well as the Newberg agendas in various committees. I could continue to list other aspects as far as investigatory writings. I don't know what more I could tell you. I probably have a greater knowledge of what's going on in Oregon than most people that you would run across with reference to written testimonies before the Oregon legislature.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I may ask you additional questions.
That's okay.
Did you say you had another question, Chris?
How would you resolve conflicts that may arise in the board between board members?
Well, that depends upon the nature of the conflict. I am a peaceful type of person, very well thought out, believe in listening to opposing sides. Outside of that, I'd try to verbally restrain somebody from going into fisticuffs if that's what it took.
All right, no further questions. Thank you.
Anybody else? Questions for David?
I have a question. Same question that I've asked. David, have you any previous experience on city or county commissions or committees?
No, not as much as just paying attention to what they're doing.
Or any other relevant experience, I guess.
My relevant experience deals with outside of this jurisdiction, dealing with very large budgets, primarily within Oregon itself. Like I said, I'm more knowledgeable than anybody that sits before me here tonight on what's going on in the state of Oregon. With reference to nobody here has outwritten me with the written testimonies to the various legislative committees. So with that regard, I guess it's quite profound. Now, with reference to Newberg, I'm very much concerned about how certain committees are stocked with people that have obviously conflicts of interest. And this just isn't this committee, but that TLT committee was rife with problems. The communication aspects of everything speaks for itself. The URA, URB, UGB rather, issues are quite significant with reference to how the city is going to grow and actually how every city in the state of Oregon is going to grow. And you have to watch out on who you put on these committees because of land use issues and the potential for property values to increase or decrease. In this particular instance, with these variety of House measures and Senate measure, you're going to see property values plummet with high density, low income housing. For example, the Crestview project that was previously discussed, that mixed use is I'm quite familiar with that. Mixed use is going to cause Newberg a tremendous amount of problems. Newberg has failed, for example, to keep pace with infrastructure. I reviewed their water pollution control storm CIP budgets, and I'm not impressed. Citizens are being, or property owners, especially those on fixed incomes, are being systematically driven away from their properties due to this Byzantine fee structures that which municipal leaders can lock and load all their fees, their operating fees, onto people's utility bills. And I don't accept that one single bit. I propose, for example, having city charters changed throughout the jurisdiction to prohibit such a practice, but that has not occurred at this time period. Like I said earlier, this Crestview project is going to be the start of a lot of problems within the city of Newberg with reference to increase in crime. And we've already seen the increase in crime occurring in Newberg. But that's just the police and the fire end. I mean, you've got Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue. They're doing a fine job. But the rest of it is a mess. And paying attention to how this committee is going to attack building or expansion and the housing types that are going to be going into neighborhoods is very much important, because I sincerely doubt the vast majority of property owners and or voters within Newberg City itself have any idea of what's going to happen to them with reference to their properties. And those within the county have about the same level of knowledge of what the state's planning to do with accessory dwelling units and other proposed building incentives. Does that answer your question?
Any other questions for David? I see none. And David was our last one, I believe.
That is correct, Mr. Chair. So Sue, if you could move David back over to the attendee side.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, everybody.
So, Mr. Chair, this is the opportunity for the commission members to have a discussion amongst themselves based on the 4 candidates. Again, is that staff's hope would be that there would be a motion for a nomination and a second. But again, any nomination has to be ratified by both the City Council and the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners.
Open
A
discussion.
question about process. I'm just wondering, do we make a motion and then a second and then have discussion, or is there discussion typically in this process before a motion?
If you were following Robert's rule, there would be a motion and a second and then discussion.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
Well, in that case, I will make a motion to appoint Jack Lyda as the at-large member of the commission.
Is there,
Planning Commissioner Newberg, second that motion.
we had an Alan second first, so we can go with whichever. Mary made the motion for Jack Lyda for the member at large position. Now open discussion.
Go ahead, Chris.
I feel out of all the candidates, Jack Lyda would be a good candidate, considering he, even though he has a business orientation in real estate, he is retired. I know that's a concern. 3 out of the 4 members we have this evening are actually in that field. And I did like the responses of Jack Lydia as well, and his ability to, I think he would have a good ability to represent the citizens outside as well as inside the boundary. Any other thoughts?
I just wanted to add, if I could, Mr. Chair, as someone who lives outside of, I have a Newberg address, but I don't feel represented a lot because I don't live within in the city limits. So I like to hear that people are going to be thinking about and considering that those of us who have a Newberg address consider ourselves Newberg residents, but we don't live within the city limits. So I would like to feel included.
And the other person I would recommend is actually Vicky Shepherd. If for some reason Jack Lydia is not a candidate for others. Is that part of the discussion, or is?
No, what you have is a motion that's on the floor right now for Jack, and it's been seconded, so you're having discussions on that motion.
Okay. So yeah, I really like that candidate myself over all the candidates.
Anybody else?
I like Jack as well. I think it's important to have folks who represent outside of city limits on committees. I do appreciate how long he's lived in the community. I think it would be helpful to a certain extent to have folks on the committee with experience working in different committees or commissions, who have experience and an understanding of the nature of the URA and urban growth boundary and those effects on both the city and residents outside. Yeah, I guess the only, I guess those are my initial thoughts.
Any other comments?
Yes, I also too like the fact that Mr. Lydia was on a board, even though it wasn't this kind of a board. It does exhibit some experience in this area, and the fact that he did it for 9 years and was also sat as the president, I would accept as good experience.
Call for
There's no-
question.
Alan?
Just call for the question. Ask for a vote.
What's our next move, Doug?
So you have a motion, you have a second, you had discussion, the question has been called. So now we go to a vote. And this one, I would prefer that we do a roll call.
Individual.
Yeah, roll
Okay.
call.
All right, roll call vote in favor of Jack Lyda.
So Bobby, you want to take care of that?
Okay, Mary Starrett,
Yes, I vote for Jack.
Alan Halstead,
Yes,
Kit Johnston,
Yes.
Mary Kunkel, Merrill Kunkel, sorry.
Yes.
Denise Bacon
Yes.
and Chris Wright.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Chair, you have an affirmative 6-0 vote. So again, is that this will go forward to the Newberg City Council for ratification and to the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners. And I will coordinate with Ken Friday on the county side.
Okay, great. So next up is review of the Newberg Urban Area Growth Management Agreement amendments.
I know that is a mouthful, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So I'm going to simplify that acronym and just say the IGA, so I don't have to repeat it over and over again. So the IGA between the city and the county was entered into in 1979. It was amended in 1998 in regards to the process for reviewing land use applications in urban reserve designated areas. And so the city had gone through the process in 1995, 1996 in designated urban reserve areas. So the document is relatively old, as NUMAC had not met in almost 12 years. Picking up the document over the course of the last 7 years, looking at it, is there were definitely some updates that needed to be done to that particular document. There were some references to administrative rules that were no longer in place or had been modified. There were committees that were in place back in the late 70s when the communities were going through and creating their comprehensive plans, but they've now gone by the wayside. There was a lack of clarity really about urban reserve areas and authority to review those. Though NUMAC has reviewed urban reserve areas in the past, my recollection based on research is 3 different times. A question had been brought up is like, it needs to be clearer in the IGA if NUMAC really has that authority, because the language in the agreement refers to comp plan amendments. And so the county has their comp plan, the city has our comp plan, but these urban reserves have to be in both agencies' comprehensive plans. So the question came up, has been asked about, well, who initiated this? And I will say, I am the culprit of updating this document that is 41, 42 years old. Because Newberg has been going through the process of looking at, do we have a need for additional land for the growth of Newberg over the course of the next 20 years or so? And so that's why we've reconvened NUMAC to have these discussions. NUMAC does not make a final decision on this IGA. That is responsibility of the Newberg City Council and the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners. But in my conversations with county staff, we wanted to make sure that we were sharing the proposed modifications and updates with NUMAC, because you would be operating under that. And so I put together a brief memo trying to basically outline, the different sections, and we provided you a track changes version, and we provided you a clean version. They're still in draft form and subject to change and modification. again, the really the big part of all of this is it's a relatively old document. I think somebody's alluded to earlier this evening, the packet was 63 pages in length. I can say for my planning commission, city council, that's a pretty thin packet. I would say for the county, that's probably a pretty thin packet as well, because there's always a lot of information that's in there. That's kind of the general overview. Ken, anything you would want to provide as additional comments?
Yeah, the only thing I think I would say is that we have had a recent departure of a retirement of our lead planning attorney. And I will say I kind of would like to run this by our legal counsel, because it's going to eventually go before the Board of Commissioners, and our legal counsel is going to look at it anyway. And the other thing I'd say is I kind of tend to agree with Ken Katzeroff that it's a lot easier and it makes more sense, and it's less confusing to the public if we have hearings that are de novo. Folks that want to come and testify, our board, and I'm sure the city council wants to hear from them, and they don't want to have there be limits on folks, and folks tend to think be suspicious of limits that are put on their testimony. And so I would concur with his observation that at least that section ought to be modified to allow for the Board of Commissioners to hold a de novo hearing.
So with that, Mr. Chair, I would open it up for commission members if they have any questions or comments based upon the material that we had sent you in regards to making amendments and updates to the intergovernmental agreement between the city and the county.
Okay, anybody got any questions or comments?
Comments. If you go to page 10 in the packet, which is the agreement, it's something I'm Roman numeral V, item B, service capacity development with the union growth boundary. I think that's an old typo that needs to be revised, corrected.
And that was brought to my attention, Commissioner, about it should not be union, it should be urban. And so we would make that correction in future documents that go before the city and the Board of Commissioners.
And second thing is, where would you insert the notion about de novo hearings between the county board and the city?
Where it's referenced in the document, where it says on the record, that would be changed to a de novo hearing.
And it's section 7, subsection 2, and several 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, several paragraphs down. The beginning of the paragraph says following the public hearing.
Okay, I see it.
I would agree with the two Kens on that. I would feel uncomfortable hearing something without being able to ask questions and get better understanding and have people feel actually heard when they come before the body. So I agree that should change.
So just a school of thought, not that it's right or it's wrong, but Commissioner Bacon has heard me elaborate on things in the past. So in the original modifications to this is the note and the de novo process is that really it puts the weight upon NUMAC to take all of that particular testimony. So you have to remember NUMAC makes recommendations to the city council and to the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners. So after a case comes before NUMAC, it then goes to the city council. And so in the construct of this, it was de novo based upon the record of all of the discussions that occurred at NUMAC. If you could do a de novo hearing in front of the city council, then of course there can be new testimony and new evidence that's entered into the record. But NUMAC may have never considered that. So then, oh, was the NUMAC recommendation the one you would have made if you had had that information? Then a theoretical next step on that is the city council makes a decision by ordinance, and that gets forwarded to the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners. And under de novo construct is that new evidence, new testimony could be entered into before the Yamhill Valley to the county commissioners. But the city council did not have that same information. So would they have made the same decision? And NUMAC would not have had that information. Would they have made their recommendation or not? So that was, I'm not saying either one of these is right or it's wrong. It's just want to have the discussion about, where you would suggest to the city council and the board of commissioners what kind of process you would use. Also under that construct, it raises the question, well, who's makes the final decision? So in the IGA, it talks about if there is disagreements between the city council and the board of commissioners, is that they would then come together and mediate it to come to some resolution. That could add a bunch more process into the steps, because the council could have made one decision and the county made another or wanted to make another. They come together, they mediate, they come to a resolution, then it goes back to the council. The council has to make a different decision under a new hearing, and then it goes back to the board of commissioners. So again, it's Oregon land use law. It's messy. It's always messy. So that's just some thought process. Again, I'm not saying one way or the other is correct. And to Ken's comment, yes, county council should definitely look at it. In the drafting of what you see with all the track changes, the city did take the lead, and we worked with our legal counsel to try to clean up as much of this old document as possible, and have shared that with county staff.
Is it possible, Doug, when, I'm sorry, Commissioner Wright, is it possible when new testimony is received as far as part of a procedure that it can go back to the NUAMC board?
Oh, that's another piece, and Ken and I have not talked about that, but that could be another potential amendment to the IGA. Is like, well, if something goes to NUMAC and it goes to the city council first, could the city council refer it back to NUMAC for additional consideration or reconsideration of their recommendation? That language is not in this agreement at this time. Potentially, it could be added if it's something that NUMAC thought might be of some value.
Right. Thank you.
Mary?
Yes, I would recommend at this time, I would feel more comfortable if Director Friday and County Council had a chance to take a look at this and just look at some of those areas that might be ambiguous or areas of concern, at least in process wise, and then either make recommendations in discussion with Doug prior to the next meeting, and then we could go ahead and basically just approve the amendments and the bylaws amendments.
Any other comments?
I think that
needs to be a motion.
I had a question.
Go ahead.
And it was related to what you said, Mary, which is considering Ken's comments, if we move to approve these updated bylaws, Doug, before it goes before county council, what would happen at that point?
Well, again, NUMAC is not approving the IGA. And when we get to the bylaw section, you're not approving the bylaws either. We're only sharing this information with you to get your feedback. If there are some areas that you think we've overlooked or there's some areas that you think we should consider making some changes. So you're only advisory in nature, and it would be up to Ken and I to work together to come up with a final version of a document that would then go both to the city council and to the Board of Commissioners for their review and adoption.
Okay, so to clarify, you're not asking for a motion tonight. You're asking us just to make recommendations on the proposed bylaws, and recommendations we make will still go before county council, and you and Ken will still put your heads together and make any changes that county thinks is necessary to the document before it goes before county and the Board of Commissioners and the City Council.
Correct. So you had the conversation about a de novo hearing or on the record hearing. And so with that, Ken and I will talk. Ken would talk with county council. I've talked with our legal department, and we would have a conversation. And then we come to some type of conclusion. Not sure what that is yet. Ken and I will have to arm wrestle. And then, but ultimately, again, is the decision on modifications to the IGA rest with the City Council and the Board of Commissioners.
Will you, sorry, another follow-up if that's okay. Will you bring the document and any changes you make back before our commission?
I can, if that's the desire of the commission. I shouldn't say I can. Ken and I can. If that is the desire.
What did you say, Ken?
I think that would be appropriate to, yeah, I think, you know, both the City Council and Board of Commissioners would want you folks' input on to how to do this, and I think that'd be appropriate.
I would like to make a comment about quote hearings before the county and the city. I understand where Doug's going with wanting a de novo hearing, because I've been in too many hearings where, oh, I'll just wait and bring that up at the next level, and we can kind of run a test pattern through the planning commission to see if it's going to fly. And if we don't get what we want, we'll change our argument the next time around. So the idea of a de novo hearing is to force the proponent, opponent, whatever, to make their argument at the lowest point. I can understand that, but it also creates a problem that you don't get enough participation at that point from, quote, the public to make a good decision. I think unlimited de novo hearings are a problem also, because that just keeps opening up the can of worms. I think it needs to be a de novo hearing with the option of the city and the county to open it to testimony. That's just my 2 cents worth.
Anybody else?
Yes,
Mary?
Mr. Chair, I do have just a question about process, and I just wanted to get some clarification. So if the suggested revisions are made and then brought back before this group, you're saying that we don't need an actual commission motion to send it on? It's just it's basically consensus. Is it consensus, or is it just, at what point do we consider this a group motion? What is the actual process?
There is no motion from NUMAC. There is no vote by NUMAC to change the IGA. So the hope is that there be some consensus in a final version that we could then take forward to the City Council and the Board of Commissioners for their consideration. And again, at that level, there could be some additional modifications to the intergovernmental agreement between the city and the county. When this document was originally created,
I guess I was looking for that word consensus.
yeah. So when this document was originally created, and I was not here at that time, but at least I've read a lot, is that there was no NUMAC. And so this was an IGA that was negotiated and brought forward by the staffs that were here at the time. and then brought forward to the city council and to the board of commissioners that were sitting at that point in time, and got adopted. Similar process in 1998 after Newberg had done its urban reserve process and coordinated with the county, is that there was a new section added to the IGA about the process for when land use actions are taking place within urban reserve areas. And for those who may or may not know, so if you're in an urban reserve area, there is a process that has to go through the city and to the city council for a recommendation that goes to the board of commissioners, or back to the county for their consideration on that land use action. So other than that, there really hasn't been any changes to this document that was created in 1979.
As the grouchy curmudgeon in residence, part of the reasoning for the Newberg Urban Area Management Commission, if you go back, you will notice that there's a Newberg Dundee component to the agreement. At the time, Newberg was anticipating expanding towards Dundee along Dayton Avenue. And the residents of that no man's land between Newberg and Dundee did not want to be incorporated and taken over by Newberg. Dundee did not want Newberg to move towards them. They wanted to stay completely separate. And that was part of the reasoning behind the original operations of NUMAC.
So there we got a little bit of history lesson from our long-term member. Thank you, Alan.
So no motions to be made. We just move on to the next item then?
Is there any other comments or feedbacks on the intergovernmental agreement that any of the commission members would like to provide Ken and I?
I think the next step is just what Ken Friday want to do, and that's have the county council review it. And then I don't know where it goes from there. If it comes back to us again and we have a discussion again, but ultimately it doesn't matter. We can have input, but it gets approved by Newberg City and Yamhill County.
So from the conversation this evening, what I've heard is that Ken and I will coordinate. And then once we get a refreshed document, as we bring that back in front of NUMAC again for your consideration and comments and so forth before we move on to the city council and the board of commissioners.
Okay.
I'm seeing heads kind of nodding, so I'm
Yes,
assuming that's okay.
Nothing to vote on, right?
Nothing to vote on.
Okay.
I'm not voting, but I like the sound of that.
So the next one we got is the review of the Nurburg Urban Area Management Commission bylaws and amendments.
Hold on.
Oh,
Hold on.
yo.
Commissioner Wright, on the start of page 12, number 5 is the same as number 4 on page 11. At the end of it.
Which section are you in, Commissioner?
Okay. I am in section 3, general. But you go down to page 11. At the end of page 11, you've got number 4. Members of the Yamhill County Planning Commission designated by the Board of County Commissioners. And then you go to number 5 on page 12, and it's literally the same thing.
And that is correct. It is.
Is that correct?
Yep. So there would be two Yamhill County Planning Commissioners designated by the County Board of Commissioners to be on NUMAC.
Okay, so there's just one entry for each rather than saying 2 Yamhill County Planning Commissioners, blah, blah, blah.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. Thank you.
Basically, once upon a time, that was the Newberg Dundee Urban Group, Agreement Group slot.
Okay.
And that group no longer exists.
That's right.
Okay, are we ready to move on? Number 3, review of the Newberg Urban Area Management Commission bylaws.
So back in 1980, NUMAC was formed, and there were a set of bylaws that were created and approved by the Newberg City Council and the County Board of Commissioners. So those bylaws have not been amended since or updated since 1980. So as we work through possible changes and modifications and updates to the intergovernmental agreement, we also needed to make changes to the bylaws because there are elements that are in the IGA that are also embedded in the particular bylaws. And as I noted in regards to the IGA, there was a perception that there may be some lack of clarity about NUMAC's role in the area of urban reserves. So this document updates all of that. Where the document kind of referred to commissioners, we changed everything to NUMAC. We suggested that under Article 2, under the purpose, that it's clearly written that urban reserves are part of the purview of NUMAC. Tried to clarify changes, comprehensive plan changes to areas outside of the urban growth boundary, but within that area of influence. And so those are under Article 2, under number 4 and 5. We updated the membership component again to mirror what would be in the proposed amendments to the IGA. Then moving on, duties and responsibilities under Article 4. We did some cleanup there. There were references there to administrative rule provisions that no longer exist or have been modified. So we tried to generalize that so that it would say that we're complying with statewide land use planning goal 14 or S197 or 197A and related administrative rules instead of being specific, because we know that state law administrative rules change from time to time. Under the organization, again, changing the commission to just NUMAC, Newberg Urban Area Management Commission, so it's consistent throughout the document. Newberg's structure has changed. We don't have technically a planning department. We have a community development department, which has different divisions within it. So cleaning up that. Then the minutes component of that, we looked at it to try to clarify about when minutes needed to be done. The property owner requesting, this is under Article 4, Organization F, is we propose some language there on coordinating and who may initiate amendment, because it could be the county might initiate amendment, the city could initiate amendment, or a property owner could initiate an amendment. And the whole bylaws was kind of, we were going through it, was silent on that. Then notice for meetings, at least 10 days. So again, clarifying that. The city and the county have some different noticing requirements. And so again, trying to clean it up. We have different parts of state law and administrative rules that we have to administer. Under the meetings, under Article 6, again, changing commission to just NUMAC members, but then clarifying just about some of the procedures that would occur. So we've added one, call the meeting to order first, as the chair did this evening. Conflicts of interest and bias and ex parte. We didn't have that in the bylaws. We thought it would be a good suggestion to do that as you are conducting quasi-judicial hearings. Then there were some additional just clarifications about testimony in opposition. So following that sequence of applicant, proponents, opponents, rebuttal. And those are under the quasi-judicial. If there was a legislative item that came before NUMAC, again, is outlining what that steps in those processes would be. Under Article 6, the voting, again, changing the commission and referencing that as NUMAC. And then we added a new Article 8, which is conflicts of interest. So we're always trying to make sure that NUMAC members are abiding by all of the laws, and staff on both the county and the city side is trying to make sure that everything is clean and appropriate and proper, following state law requirements. And then that required renumbering parliamentary authority and amendments as articles number 9 and number 10. That is the brief recap. So again, similar to the IGA, there is no decision that is required from NUMAC. This is more providing, getting comments and feedback from you on additional corrections or modifications you might want to make to that. And then I'm sure it's similar to the IGA. Ken would want to run this by county council, get their feedback, and Ken and I would coordinate. And like the IGA, would bring you back another version for your consideration and feedback before it would go to the city council and the board of commissioners. The city council and the board of commissioners are the ones who have to adopt the bylaws. So again, no motion is required, just consensus and getting feedback from commission members.
Any comments?
Commissioner Wright, on the voting, when you state that an alternative is there and the other person, the original attendee, is in conflict, is there ever more than one agenda item brought forward at a time per meeting?
It can be, yes.
Okay, then could you clarify if they choose an alternate, does an alternate come in and only address one item? Or do they do the whole meeting if there's a conflict of interest?
They would come in for the one item.
All right, thank you.
Any other comments? I don't hear any other comments. How would you like to proceed from here, Doug? You want to go on to there's no public hearings.
I would say, Mr. Chair, is if we don't have any comments on the bylaws, I will coordinate with Ken and with county council to see if there are any suggested revisions, and then we'll bring the bylaws back at the same time we would bring the IGA back for you to look at a final version before it would go on to the city council and the board of commissioners for consideration. Ken, that sound okay?
That sounds okay.
Okay, good. 7 public hearings, none. 8 items from staff, next meeting.
To be determined.
Okay.
Ken and I will have to coordinate. We know we're all really busy right now. And so we'll figure out when the next meeting is going to be. And as the secretary for NUMAC, I will send out an email and let everyone know. So it will continue to be on a Tuesday at 7 p.m. We always move towards, what is this, the third? What day is it today? Is it the third Tuesday or is it the fourth? It's third Tuesday. So I'm not sure if we will have this meeting in January or if it will be in February, but Ken and I will coordinate that and I will let you know when it will be.
Okay, sounds good. Items from the commissioners.
Yes, Planning Commissioner Wright. I just found a few other typos. Did you want me to just forward a list to you rather than talk about them? They're typos.
They're typos. The document is still in draft form, so it has not gone through all the proofreading, but if you have something, you can email me, yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Items from commissioners.
None.
I see nothing. Last thing's adjournment. So I adjourn the meeting November 23rd of the Newberg Urban Area Management Commission. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank everyone for their time. Have happy holidays.
Humbug.
Be safe. Bah, humbug. Oh, I love it. Could be.